Excellent. Thanks very much, James, and thank you people for coming out this morning. I'm not based in Dubai, so I'm sort of just passing through. But I want to kind of start with this idea of an altered reality or an alternative reality. The reality that I kind of work in every day is towards the end of extreme poverty. That's the reality that I wake up with. That's the reality that I've been witnessing for many years, for 15 years in more than 80 countries around the world, and learning that there is an alternative. We can have the reality of a world without extreme poverty, with reduced inequality and making sure that we protect our planet. So that's kind of what I do, is I share this reality with many people who don't get to have the same fortunate experiences that I do. So I'm not sure if you're familiar, but these are the new set of global goals for sustainable development. So from the year 2000 to 2015, we had the Millennium Development Goals, or MDGs. We kind of did okay with those. They were sort of like our training wheels. But from 2015, these were released in September at the United Nations General Assembly. From 2015 to 2030, these goals will hopefully take the entire world to try and achieve three major things. Now there's 17 goals, they're all very important. There's 169 targets behind them, lots of indicators. It's all kind of boring, but really what we're trying to do is three major things. We're going to try and end extreme poverty, for which there's a definition from the World Bank, and that definition is what you can buy in the United States for $1.90 or less per day. And then in each country it's according to the purchasing power parity. It's all really boring. But anyway, we're going to try and end extreme poverty. We're going to try and reduce inequality. Okay, people that have access to a lot, people that have access to a little, and narrow that gap. And we're going to try and protect the planet. Okay, making sure that we live within the means of our world. So the global goals is the big picture. And I presented a lot of schools and corporates and these sorts of things, and it's too big for us to get our heads around on a practical, tangible, daily level for ourselves. So this is why I created a concept called teaspoons of change. And these are our personal choices, decisions and actions that have a positive impact on people and the planet. Okay, so those little things that we do each and every day. We're a big pile of decisions and actions every single day. So how many of those can we ensure that they're having a positive impact? And that's what I share as lots of different teaspoons of change out in the world. And then when we look at the global goals, there's so many layers to this where it's important to ourselves as individuals, us as a family. You know, often as a family, that's where we purchase our food the most. So what choices and decisions can we make there? As a community, so within your workplace, within a school, within a university, all these kinds of things. And then, and also the community would also be your country, okay, where you're sourcing your power from, your waste management programs. Are you doing enough sort of social justice awareness and programs in your community and in your country? And then the last one is as a global community, as the world. Now the wonderful thing is that we do have this set of global goals. We all share the same plan and we can all work upon it together. So the global goals are kind of like our blueprint for us to follow on our platform, where we do anything good in the world, it fits into that grand plan, no matter who we are and where we are. So a quick introduction, my name's Darcy Lunn with a very confusing spelling for my name, but that's my mum's fault. And I do lots of different work for different organisations at different times. So I don't just work for one organisation at any one time. Now I come from a large family in Australia, as you may tell by my beautiful Australian accent. Sorry to the South Africans, that's all right. I think ours is a little bit better. Anyway, so I come from a big family in Australia, but my reality was very much about me when I grew up. You know, I love playing sport, I love hanging out with my friends. I didn't really care much about the world at all. And then through some strange reason, I had an opportunity to go and work in a bakery in Japan when I was 18 years old. I didn't know how to bake bread and I didn't know how to speak Japanese, but the opportunity kind of got thrown in my lap, so I thought, yeah, okay, I'll try that. And so after 3 months, I'd learned how to speak Japanese, relatively fluently, and I'd learned how to make bread, and then my reality had expanded exponentially. Okay, instead of me going through the world and thinking I wanted to be a primary school teacher, and for me that meant doing this and then this and then this, and then working in a Japanese bakery wasn't quite in the vision of becoming a primary school teacher. And so when my reality expanded so much, that's where my brain shifted from going, what did I want to be in the future? So if you wanted to be a lawyer or a plumber or whatever it is, we kind of give ourselves a fairly narrow path that we have to follow. And instead my brain shifted to what did I want to do in the future? And then whatever I was going to be would just be. And instead it was focusing on what are the things that I want to do. And if we follow what we want to do in the future, it really sings to our heart. If I listen to my head, it'll tell me what I should do. Okay, I should be married, I should have a house, I should be settled down. But if I follow my heart and do the things that I want to do, then I'll go and work in a Japanese bakery. I'll go and climb mountains in Kyrgyzstan. I'll go and meet different people in different places doing different things at different times. So that's kind of my job description. And so what I did start to do after a while, I spent a lot of time working in Africa and Central Asia and other places, is that I then wanted to share these experiences. And as a school teacher, I actually did become a school teacher in the end. But as a school teacher, the way that I wanted to share them was by riding my bike. So I rode my bike around a few thousand kilometres around New Zealand, around Australia, Uganda, other places, and just sharing really simple ideas and experiences that I'd learnt from other people in other places. And then some of the time I also work on the ground in developing countries, in countries like South Sudan, that face huge issues and problems. But when I work in these sorts of programs, that in South Sudan I probably saw the biggest challenges that I've ever seen anyone have to face. Conflict, violence, lack of health, lack of education, lack of safety, lack of gender equality, all these sorts of things. But what I found is instead of people running away from those problems, there are always people running towards them to be a part of the solution. And I wanted to be a part of that as well. So my reality has shifted significantly from being a sports-loving 22-year-old in Australia to now what I kind of feel is more this global citizen perspective of knowing the things that I do have a meaning in the world, and when I do good things, then it's part of creating a better world. So again, for me, it isn't just about staying with one organisation doing one thing. I kind of just skip around and do lots of different things over many years. And then sometimes I find there's a bit of a gap. And so if there is a gap, then I try and fill it with a few of my own thoughts and ideas and trying to turn my ideas into reality, which I'll share with you. So the first one is teaspoons of change. And for me to kick off teaspoons of change, I needed to think about, well, what is this concept and what does it mean to me? So I went for a walk, 1,000 kilometres in Japan, and then unfortunately I got shin splints, which really hurt. And I couldn't walk, so I jumped on a bicycle and rode for another 1,500 kilometres. But the thing is, if you do this, it gives you a long time to think. It gives you lots of different perspectives in the world. And so that's where I came up with these different concepts for teaspoons of change. One of the things I came up with is our balance in the world, okay? Help versus harm. So how much help am I putting into the world and how much harm am I putting into the world? And instead of going around and giving people a moral bashing or a guilt trip or telling them that you shouldn't do this, it's about celebrating the things that we can do. And when possible, to try and, flip this balance of being help heavy and harm light. So how do we maximise our help and how do we minimise our harms? And often I sort of sit down and think about, well, if I'm doing this, is it contributing positively? And can I make a better choice? And one of my favourite quotes from a musician called Michael Franti, and he says in one of his songs, are we a part of the pollution or are we a part of the solution? And for me, that's a really strong set of lenses that I wear every single day. Everything that I do, I think about, is this something that I can control and have a more positive impact on what I'm doing? So one of the ways I wanted to do that was, it just started with an idea of what is the most sustainable way that I can live? The most lightly way ecologically and also connected to my community. And I came up with this idea called Happy Simply. Now, I'm a boring dot points kind of person, but luckily there are people like you who are good at putting dot points into making things pretty. And so we created a poster. Now, I didn't know how to build a 10 square metre house. I didn't know how to design or all these sorts of things, but luckily I found people who did. And so with that simple idea, a few dot points turned into a poster, shared that poster around, got into designers, the designers turned it into a design, and then we built a house. 2 weeks. We also found builders who wanted to do this as well. So within 2 weeks, a series of people, all volunteers, we all just came together and created a fully self-sufficient, sustainable tiny house on a trailer, an old boat trailer actually. So yeah, solar panels, water capture, compost toilet, all that sort of thing. And for me, the wonderful thing was that sense of community as well. And I got to choose the colour and it matched my shirt, which was great. So this is the inside, little loft up at the top. So 10 square metres doesn't sound like a lot, but maybe in Dubai terms. But for me, it's that idea of happy simply, okay? How to live more life with less stuff. And I've certainly learned that from many countries and people around the world. And the one in New Zealand, that was in New Zealand, went so well, we built another one in Australia. And it comes with a free rainbow if you build one in Australia. So again, this idea of fully self-sufficient, your water tank in Australia needs to be much bigger than the one in New Zealand. And again, it was that sense of community. So how I've turned these things into reality is that, yeah, we dream big, but then we actually have to be quite practical. And then we have to be able to collaborate and ask people for favours. So I'm not a great builder, but I'm good at getting stuff for free. That was kind of my contribution to things. So these teaspoons of change, these little things, do they make a difference? So I want to ask you a quick question. The percentage of people living in extreme poverty, okay, according to our World Bank definition. In 1981, more than half the world lived in extreme poverty, 52%, okay, according to the statistics back then. And by 2015, what percentage do you think that is? Have a quick guess to the person next to you. What percentage of the world do you think still lives in extreme poverty? Okay, so no more bets? All bets are off? Yeah, it's interesting. Depending on which field your reality is in, we're obviously going to have different answers. The projected figures, according to the World Bank, for 2015 is 9.6%. Okay, 702 million people, the first time we've been below 1 billion people ever. Now, the trouble is our reality, unfortunately, is strongly influenced by the media around us. And unfortunately, most of the media around us tells us the terrible stories. Unlike myself, who gets to go and work with amazing people doing amazing things, I know that 9.6% is absolutely possible. Is possible. And I know so many good people doing good things that is the reality. And I also truly believe that by 2030, we can end extreme poverty. It is possible. There are enough people committed to these things, and we're getting there faster and more effectively than we ever have before. So that's the reality that I luckily get to live with every day. And if you don't believe me, that's fine. And statistics don't tell a perfect picture. You know, sub-Saharan Africa hasn't seen the same drop in statistics in extreme poverty, etc. But if you don't believe me, Hans Rosling is a champion. Check out his TED Talks. And if you're familiar with Gapminder. So Hans Rosling is a Swedish professor. He talks about graphs and he probably wears socks with sandals, but he's a champion. He'll make these graphs sing and tell you, you know, just these comparisons. Access to mobile phones helps reduce infant mortality. Okay, all these sorts of things. And this is the reality of the world. Another quick reality I want to share with you is polio eradication. You may not have heard of this disease before, which is a good thing. But polio was a scourge of the world. In 1988, four organisations got together to form a global alliance to eradicate polio. In 1988, there were 350,000 cases of polio, and 125 countries were still endemic with the disease, had never stopped the disease. But since 1988, and this kind of bringing together of these organisations, millions of volunteers, billions of drops of vaccine, we can see that by 2015, we're down to just 2 countries endemic with polio, Pakistan and Afghanistan. In 2015, our statistics are just 74 cases worldwide. Now, Africa isn't just one country, it's 54 countries. And in 2015, there were 0 cases of polio in the whole of Africa for the first time ever. And the way we eradicate polio is 2 drops or an injection. Okay, 2 drops, billions of times over. So when I talk about teaspoons of change, I know that these small things do make a huge difference. I'm in the Middle East to promote this idea of polio points. This is where students do good things in school or university or businesses. They create teaspoons of change, you know, taking their own water bottle with them, taking public transport, whatever it is, those small teaspoons of change. They get awarded points, those points get matched by donations, and those donations go to polio eradication. So I started this in Brunei, of all places. Students at ISB, International School Brunei, they do good things. Their points, their teaspoons of change get matched by Standard Chartered Bank, and that goes to polio eradication in UNICEF in Pakistan, where I was working. So yeah, a really cool little concept that's in Kuwait. The whole country is taking it on. I just came from Kuwait yesterday, and the Minister of Youth, every school will take that on as a campaign from October to December. And then a cute baby photo is always really important. So let me finish up here. Here's the thing. The reality of a world without extreme poverty is that we know what it takes. Okay, there aren't mysteries around it. We know that there's enough money in the world. Okay, if we compare the amount of money it would cost us to have access to clean water, this is a per year cost. If we compare that with the amount of money we spend on bottled water, we spend twice as much on bottled water than it would mean for everyone to have access to clean water in the world. So unfortunately, this isn't the reality yet, and we want to make it that way. The other reality is that we can do this together. In fact, we have to do this together. It's going to take poor people themselves, famous people, rich people, but also people like you and I to do what we can. So check out these global goals. There's lots of really good organisations you can check out. Global Citizen is something I helped start a couple of years ago as well. And their Global Citizen Festival that they have in New York every September around the United Nations General Assembly. If you're into food and sustainability, Sustainable Table is my favourite here. There's a wonderful new idea of effective altruism, how to do good better is their slogan. Giving what we can, this is where we kind of commit to 10% of our income going to helping eradicate extreme poverty. Results, these are a political organisation. They write letters to leaders telling them, you know, we want to see good things happen in the world. And then there's so many NGOs on the ground doing wonderful things, like 7 Women, Jump Foundation with youth empowerment, IYPF, International Young Professional Foundation, and many, many others. Lots of campaigns like Live Below the Line. We have to live on $1.50 a day each day for 5 days. And I actually rode a bicycle for 1,000 miles at the same time to do that. So the last thing I'll leave you with is, you know, what are your teaspoons of change? What are those small things that we can do on a daily basis? Knowing that small actions multiplied by lots of people equals big change. It's a simple formula, but it's the one that changes the world. Okay, we can't just push a magic button and make things great. We all have to do our little teaspoon of change. So we can see a poverty-free world for everyone, everywhere, and forever. So whenever I make one small teaspoon of change, I know that it directly has an impact on someone somewhere. This is a small girl from an Afghan refugee camp in Pakistan, and I was able to give her 2 drops of polio vaccine, but I know that the actions I take in Dubai or other places directly impact on the world that she lives in and that I live in. So that's kind of the idea of Global Citizen. And if you want to get in touch, then probably the easiest way is through Teaspoons of Change. James, thanks so much for having me this morning. Ask me questions after. Cheers.